All right, good evening. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. It's Wednesday night, 7 o'clock time for Zoom into Wine. Every Wednesday night, we get together with some great people, talk about wine, a different grape variety, different place, a different country, different ideas on wine. And I love the wine, but I love the people we get together even more. So I'm real excited to have you all here to join me. We got some wonderful wines. We call them gold nuggets tonight, gold nuggets of Spain. And I think it's going to be a fantastic show. Let's get a little wine in our glass and then we'll talk to the audience a little bit and get relaxed here as we talk about our first wine, wine number one. This is Lagar de Cervera. It is the Pozio di Seoane, the Rosal. So this is a blended wine, mainly Albarino from Rias Baixas in Spain. This wine is a 2021, and this has been a bestseller in our store for a number of years now. A couple years back, I gave it a really, really ridiculously high score. I haven't scored this one yet, but let's take a look at it and see what your thoughts are. This is from Rias Baixas, right on the water. This is a very special region, the Galatia region, Bersco and other areas nearby, all kind of share that Basque language. Number of grape varieties that we've been importing from this area too have been growing, and the interest in this wine region has been growing. Tourism in this wine region has been growing as well. So La Rioja Alta came in and got really excited about this Albarino producer, and well, they started this Albarino producer. They were of course excited about it, but they started to buy and acquire some really special spots. The bodega now has 42 hectares, and that's a pretty giant vineyard for Albarino for Rias Baixas. Here they're trellising old school methods way up on top, using the leaves to block the sun, allow that pergola system to kind of let the grapes, the clusters hang down. And this is very time tested and kind of in retrograde. We're going back to this manner of growing grapes in a lot of parts of the world. This is a pergola, this is an old school pergola, and the modern ones look just like this as well. Training those vines up 4, 5, 6 feet. Of course, it helps a lot of the vineyard workers. They might not be that tall. So that's perfect. If you're very tall, that's really hard on your back. So here's our blend in wine number one. It's 60% Albarino, 21 Duero, which you'll find a lot of Duero in Portugal as well. 12% Canino Blanc and Trechadura making up the balance. 91 points here by a Spanish wine guide, Guia Pinin. And let's see what our audience thinks about this first wine. And cheers to you all. Happy Wednesday. This is the 2021, and as I said, I've had it for a couple of years. I love Albarino. I love the nose. I love the saltiness. I love the intensity. It's very bright. There's something very much in common with wines like Pinot Grigio and Sancerre, but then there's some unique features as well. This one's a little more sun-drenched. It's got just a little bit more oomph, more density, some really great acidity though. I think the 21, comparing it to past vintages, really good. Maybe not as flashy and as aromatic as it once hit me. And I think it was the 2019 vintage. But all that saltiness and that uh, complexity in the nose is there. It might be getting just a little bit of like white peach. Kent I'm counting on you for some good wine notes tonight. Let's see what you guys are saying. Oh, you had it with some Stephanie, you had it with some pork chops tonight with a slightly sweet barbecue sauce. That's kind of fun. This could act a little bit like something like a Riesling. It's not sweet at all, but as long as the barbecue sauce isn't too sweet, just slightly sweet. I think that's a really cool opportunity there. Lemongrass, lime zest, Kent. Exactly. Very cool. It's got a lot of like fruit, citrus pith going on, whether it's grapefruit or tangerine and orange peel. I think this wine's a little more restrained than in past incarnations, meaning that nose gets a little quieter and pulls me into the glass, and I get a little bit more tension with a stony minerality. Um, I think this wine is still phenomenal, fantastic, especially when you think about the price point, which we'll talk about here now. This winery is beautifully done. They actually put pictures on all the tanks, make it very atmospheric. This is about $23, and I'm buying some Albarinos at different price points right now. I've got a really elite Albarino on the wine list. Bringing in a new one tomorrow that'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 34. And this will kind of represent our value level. I think there are some Albarinos that you can buy a little less expensive, but they're really large producers, very kind of grocery store focused. And they lose some of their their quality marks and concentration, get a little dilute, a little thin. I do really like this one also because it is a blended varietal, very indigenous varieties to this part of the world. Blended wine more than just a straight Albarino, and I think that helps its value proposition. I think if it was a pure Albarino, it would be pushing towards 30 to 40 bucks. And some of the best versions of Albarino are now 40 to 60 bucks. And they're, really trying to make this a marquee wine for the area. Not saying that it all needs to be that expensive, but finding a good wine somewhere between 18 and 20 and $30. This is a pretty healthy wine for the money, and I'm gonna continue to carry it into the future. I believe in the producer. I believe in the wine. Let's talk about Spain for a second, because I'm trying to get my Spain thing going on. I'm preparing a trip to Spain for next year, November. We weren't successful the last time, but I think we just got too late of a start getting that trip up and running. And so I'm trying to get it seated in the marketplace before the end of the year. And uh, we won't be going to Rias Baixas. That's a little far out there. But we will spend a good chunk of time in San Sebastian and then head down into Bilbao and go in through that area and see some Menthia producers, and then head into Rioja and Ribera do Duero, and then head over to Barcelona and hit Priorat and some other areas around there, maybe a cava producer too. So those are some of the ideas I've had for a while. I haven't been to Spain now for a few years, so I'm itching to get back there. The Spanish wine industry continues to grow. And so here's a little Spanish wine kind of update. Spain is actually the third largest producer of wine in the world. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 different grape varieties. and they are making that in pretty good size and quantity. We're talking about 3 million acres of total planted land. Now, Spain was planted thousands of years, like 2,000 plus years before the Romans planted France. So Spain really has wine in the blood. And of course, they went through some really different radical ideas on governance and working with the world and not working with the world. So their economy was really kind of trapped and frozen for a very long time. And then wine innovation and brand innovation and uh, investment in Spain really didn't get rocking until the 1990s. And so what we're seeing now is this great result of the boom in the 1990s and the early 2000s. And Spain continues to make better and better wine. The first move of any wine region in the world is to fight at the value price point. Let's earn our business. Let's get in there cheap and bold and work our way up. So a lot of the wines, even though some of the wines we're tasting tonight, I'm going to refer back a few years because this like Albarino category really got started at a 14, 15, $16 price point, not necessarily this wine, but the price point, and it's worked its way up. And demand is vast and people want good Albarino, and there's only so much Albarino planted. We're going to taste some other wines tonight that we'll talk about different price points, but really the primary grape varieties in Spain, we're talking about Tempranillo, Bobal, Garnacha, Monastrell, Albarino, Arian, Verdejo, Palomino, Macabeo, and then some of the classic cava grapes like Peralata, Zarello, and again Macabeo, which is also in Rioja called Viura. So lots of interesting things to keep track of in Spain. And I think it's onward and upward from here. They could always get less expensive and take that share if anyone tries to come in and take it. There's vast amounts of land, not a lot of people. In fact, Spain, like Italy, suffers from an immense amount of brain drain, and the government is like literally giving land if you will bring jobs. So it's still a land of opportunity for entrepreneurs, and they even have some incentive programs. I know the years ago in Barcelona, if you bought a house, they'd give you EU citizenship. I don't think that's even available anymore because it was driving the housing prices up so high. But they could maybe do that in other parts of Spain, lesser developed parts of Spain, and that would, further their cause. So big things ahead for Spain, and I think it's a land of opportunity, especially for us wine lovers. So let's go back in and taste our next wine. Oh, I've got one little more commercial to do for you here. Hold on one sec. And that is to mention that our Zoom into Wine membership has begun. We have now put those membership opportunities on the website. I'm doing some special creative things to add value to certain price levels, but you can be a member for as little as 60 bucks a year. That gives you access to every Zoom. It gives you a discount, not only after every Zoom, but a discount to get involved in each Zoom. It's like $5 a Zoom that you'll save being a member. So I want the membership to pay for itself. I want to have a core group, you are it, to come back and join us for these Zooms on a regular basis. And the Zoom membership really helps us seed that. Next week, by the way, is our 96, 97, 98, and 99 point wine Zoom. I have 3 spots remaining. You should potentially click in and check out this particular Zoom next week. I really want it to be completely full. as we're going to taste some awesome wines that got some big scores, some 96, 97, 98, and 99 point wines. I didn't make them all Cabernet. I moved them around a little bit. We'll talk about them texturally, about the category, about the grape varieties. So some Zinfandel, some we're going to taste some Barolo. We're going to taste one of the great wines of Chile, the Almaviva, which is the Rothschild family. We're going to taste a legendary Cornas, one of the great wines of Napa Valley today, arguably one of the real, these guys are really taking up a lot of the oxygen realm. We're going to taste their 2021 Bard. It is so irresistible. And then Van Gone. I used to say Van Gon, like it was some like French word, but it's literally because the van was gone from the vineyard that they got the name Van Gone. All right, so that wine's 99 points made by, it's got a great story. I'll tell you all about it. But get involved in this tasting. It's a little bit more expensive because they're expensive wines, but great deal. 80 bucks a person to be able to taste this flight. 3 more spots. Love to have you. Wine number 2. Let's do it. This is a great example of a wine that literally like even 5 years ago was probably 40% less in price. So some people look at this wine and they're like, oh, I used to buy that wine for $9, $10. Now it's a $15 wine. I'm just going to give it away. 15 bucks. It rocks for 15 bucks in this world. We are in the southern part of Spain, Murcia, along the coast. You've got some really high prolific, high yielding spots down here, some really old vine material as well. We're talking about vines that were planted prior to the phylloxera epidemic in the early 1800s. So they're all bush vines. Jumilla is the name of the appellation. We're talking about Monastrell, and this is a really, really delicious wine from a very good producer, Altos de la Hoya. You can see the ocean. You can see the sand in the vineyard. Um, you can see the vines just like there's no trellising here. It's bushes. Super natural, super raw. And this they do make a good amount of this wine to keep the economies of scale in place. 60-hectare vineyard, so about 150 acres. 1872, right before phylloxera. Robert Parker's review here, talking about the 2021, which is what we're tasting. And this vine, all these vines are dry farmed. It rains a good amount. You know, you get that tropical Mediterranean climate, um, maritime, very ocean driven, but it's all limestone. Little kisses of other grape varieties on top of the Monastrell. But a modern winemaking facility that has been built in the last 30 years, and they're capable of making a good amount of wine. %10 Garnacha, it says in this on my slide. It's got some good press, good price point, 15 bucks. Let's taste it together. I want to hear what you guys say. I know, Kent, are you already in there with some notes? Whole, fresh, crushed black cherry, long, pleasant fruit over fruit smack. Tannic finish. That colors suggests something, got some nice extraction. The nose, I think, is really one of the high points here. It's got little hints of like orange zest. I think it's probably because there's orange groves all around this vineyard, this area. Can you smell that? Like if you work with oranges and maybe even as a bartender, you had to like twist an orange peel or something like that. That's what you're getting. Mouth has got some nice ripeness. It's almost it's almost like a fruit sweetness in the mouth because there is a little bit of alcohol here. A comment about that. This is imported by the Rare Wine Company. They do a really good job of finding, very superior producers. It says 14.5 alcohol. So it's almost like a New World wine made in an old world country. And it's just a good, hardworking value. But it has increased in price rather drastically after the pandemic. And I just think that that was, part of the economies of scale. When you are fighting in that lower price point, cost of bottles, cost of glass, cost of shipping, all that stuff really makes things come up. Maybe someday this comes back down in price, but with everything that's going on in the world right now, probably not very soon. Let's move into wine number three as we move into one of the great elderly statespersons wineries of Spain. This is Lopez R. Lopez de Heredia. And this is a sight to be seen. I have visited here on a number of occasions. Probably will, it's like a requirement that you go there on the trip because it's such a legendary spot in Rioja. This is in the town of Haro. In fact, this was the first winery in Haro, one of the first three Rioja producers. And they make their own barrels. They have an incredible family operation. The family runs it like they're in charge of all the wine in the world. They are really, very forward thinking, long term. They have a cellar like none other. It's legendary because they do not want to touch all of those dust bunnies. That is alive. That is mushroom growing on the wall. They think it's part of the information in the winery. All the bottles are placed down there. They're not labeled. They can get a little grimy over time. They release their wines 10 plus years in age. This is their entry level. 2015 is the current vintage. They are not, this is not the winery that's focused on freshness. That there are spiders everywhere in that stuff that we just looked at. There are spider webs. They do not want to touch them. They believe it's part of their terroir, part of their ecosystem. And it's charming when you're there. They don't make you touch it or whatever, but it is organic and it is alive. You could feel that stuff moving. Um, so let's talk about this wine. Get a jar. Here we go. Doing this remote tonight. Okay, couple of things to talk about here. Well, first, before I say anything, just notice that 70% Graciano, or I'm sorry, 20 Garnacha or Grenache, 5 Graciano, 5 Masuelo. Those are all Rioja varieties. Rioja, really classic. This producer survived since the 1800s. The French and the Spanish, they didn't talk, they didn't work together. They hate each other for the most part over the last 150 years. So they didn't buy French oak, they bought American oak. When you want to know what American oak smells like in wine, smell this wine. That is dill, the smell of dill, because that's what our sap can smell like when it's grown from in a particular forests and particular trees. They got used to it. It became part of their success formula. Same thing with some Australian Shiraz has that same kind of characteristic. And even some of the Cabernets down in Coonawarra in Australia, they make it an American oak and they thrive with that dill note on the nose. And that's a marker. If you're studying for the MWMS exam and you smelt this, it would be like, ding, 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 American oak. This must be one of 3 wines in the world because this is really a signature wine and a very classic. James Suckling, 94 points, complex aromas of cherries, figs, and spices. Uh, with some fresh flowers. Follow through a medium to full body with creamy tannin texture, and a sour cherry aftertaste. Lightly chewy at the end with fine tannins. So drinkable and refreshing, but has plenty of tannic backbone. Okay, now we're going to get into a couple more pictures. When we talk about old wood, this is like this is ancient stuff. This wood is over 100 years old. These are the blending tanks. You can see that they're elevated. They used to put uh, little burning embers underneath here to create heat so that the wine would uh, finish fermenting or potentially just make it warm enough to move around, not to boil it or anything like that. Just enough temperature that the wine was be able to move around. Finishing fermentation is primarily what that's about. When the wine's too cold, the malolactic fermentation has a hard time finishing. So they warm the barrels up and malolactic gets stimulated and helped out. And that's how they can finish malolactic fermentation. Sorry, I was getting distracted by my computer not cooperating. Here we go. Okay, so what's amazing about this is that this is their current vintage. It's $27. This is their least expensive wine by a lot. They make some other single vineyards that are much more expensive. And we carry them all, by the way. We buy every wine they will let us buy. These wines are highly looked for. I love them personally. They're very different. They're very classic. This is old school, like the definition of old school. And uh and these wines age like magic, like forever. And I want to talk about it just a minute more because I'm super excited that I'm doing this. I gotta find it. See if my computer will let me get to that spot. But at Learn About Wine, I'm announcing this really aggressive tasting, maybe too aggressive. Um, but I want to excite you about it if I can, and you can tell me later if it's too aggressive. Um, I know when it's too aggressive because it doesn't sell, but we're launching it right now, and I want to share it with you. I'm doing this cave-aged cheese spectacular with Tony Princauda from the cheese store Beverly Hills. He's going to be the cheese expert. I'll do the wines. It's a bit of a chunk of change for a cheese tasting, but it's cheese and charcuterie. Some people may want to eat before, but there'll be a good amount of food, cheese, crackers, bread, charcuterie. Um, we're going to bring it all, but it's all about the wines that we're going to be tasting on this, and we really want to do this magical pairing. So we're going to start off with some great Bordeaux Blancs. Then we're going to taste some Riojas that go back in time. And if you did the research on these are really um, highly sought after older vintages and older producers. So Cune 52, Campo Viejo 64, Lopez Heredia's Tardonia, their top wine, Grand Reserva 1970, Cune's 1982, and then Fausto's 94. So these are the representatives from Rioja. And what we're going to do is we're going to have three glasses in front of you. One of them is going to be Rioja, one of them is going to be Old Bordeaux, and one of them is going to be Old Napa. So you take a look at the Bordeaux's, and there's some 82, 88, 89, 90, 95. And then the Napa lineup this is a big chunk of the investment in this event because a lot of these wines are quite pricey now. But Krug 68, Inglenook 55, Mondavi 70, Inglenook 65, and there's a fifth one I'm waiting to approve to get it on the tasting. So it'll be 15 reds, 3 whites, and 3 desserts, 18 people with cheese. I'm hoping that you guys flock to this event. Maybe this is where you can fly down from San Francisco if you want to really taste some great. If you would love cheese, Tony is the Pope of cheese. I mean, this guy, the Beverly Hills Cheese Store, he worked there 40 years. He's been to all the producers, and he knows his cheese like no one else. And we're going to taste some of the best, along with that great wine lineup. Let's break for a second and talk about this Rioja. What did you think of it? Richard, are you enjoying? Thomas, what do you think, buddy? Is that classic or what?
It is
Enjoyed it
definitely
very much.
Go for it, Thomas.
no, I'm also I enjoy the wine very much, Ian, and I'm also enjoying Richard's Ski Buffet that's behind him as well. Uh,
Very nice.
sorry,
Richard, how was the wine for you?
Sorry, but
Enjoyed it a lot.
All
I've
right. Thank you,
tasted
Richard.
some of the other ones coming up and enjoy them even more.
Thank you, Richard. Stephanie, are you and Dave there? Did Dave cook up a great dinner? Is it just the two of you, or is
Yeah.
there like a whole?
Kelly was gonna come, but it didn't work, so it's just the two of us, and so
Oh.
he made chops, and it was lovely. Yeah, I thought the white would go best with it because of the slight flavor of the barbecue sauce, and it did.
Yeah, Rioja can be quite a chameleon and really work with a lot of great foods. There's some great energy there. This 15 Rioja is not old. This wine will age for like a battleship, and those old Riojas they just keep going. They keep going. They teach them to live long lives. They spend a long time in wood, 5, 10, 15 years in wood, some of these wines. So they really developed some interesting character, but they're not classically pretty, but they have so much personality. They're amazing. Well, let's move on to our next sensation. Kent, I'm hoping I didn't miss any of your comments. I'll look and see. A little smaller screen tonight. It's kind of like doing a Zoom with one hand tied behind your back. It's not my favorite thing to do, but extenuating circumstances tonight, had to get out of that office. All right. Peter Work, are you out there? Are you in harvest? Are you hiding?
We were out picking at 4 o'clock this morning, but I'm still alive.
So, and you got your wines okay? Because I saw the email.
Yeah, I'm sorry there was a little hiccup, but we got all of them. Thank you so much, Ian.
Awesome.
We're actually sitting outside here, looking over the vineyard, even though it's pitch black, and it was great. It was 97 degrees here. It got a little bit warm, but it's good for the vines.
All right. And how's harvest looking?
It's looking good so far. It's yields are a little bit low this year, but I mean, beside of that, it's awesome. Sugar is very well in balance, great acidity, and very promising, Ian.
Awesome. Well, if you guys are up in Santa Barbara, make sure you visit Ampelos. That's what Peter and his wife own and work with their hands. Their blood, sweat, and tears are at Ampelos, and they're a certified biodynamic and regenerative grape grower, and always have led Santa Barbara's ethos in as new levels and plateaus have emerged. They're always right there first. So, Peter, always a pleasure to have you here on the Zoom.
It's always good to be here. Do I owe you money for that plug?
Awesome. Anytime. Yeah. Send lots of checks, Peter. All right. The next wine is wine number 5. 4. We're on 4. Sorry about that. This is number 17. And that is the name of the wine. It just happens to be a 2017, but the 2018 won't be called 18 that I know of. I think they're going to keep the name 17. We're in Ribera del Duero, which is very famous for a couple of brands. One of them we're going to be tasting next. But this is a new brand that came around. What was the start? I think it says first or second year. But 17 comes from the careful selection of grapes from the 35 hectares of the Pinea estate, a mosaic of 9 plots with different characteristics of soil, slope, orientation, and age. There's the Pinea Winery. It's brand spanking new, beautiful. This is 100% Tempranillo from what is Tempranillo country, Ribera del Duero. And the famous wine brand Vega Sicilia and Pingus are in the same neighborhood. This is they make a very high tier wine, and they make this tier, and then they make a lower tier. 17 is kind of like right in the middle. I felt it was the right wine, price, value. It really achieves a lot of quality for the number, for the price. Sweet berries and chocolate with some bark. Walnuts and hints of hazelnuts. Full-bodied with juicy, polished tannins and a long, flavorful finish. Lots of intense, focused fruit. When you look at this color, it is black in the glass. It is saturated. That is really, really wonderfully toned. It delivers an expectation. This is a thick-skinned grape variety. Sure what's going on there. Sorry if my screen just freaked out. Give me 1 second. There we go. You can see in the vineyards that surround the building here, especially the one on the right, there's a lot of vines that haven't been replanted, and then there's some old vine material, and there's some baby vines and some big vines. So they are on a replanting schedule. I think they have been planted for quite a while, but this is kind of their first foray into the American market. We're talking about a $50 bottle. Their higher tier wine approaches $200. 94 points. It's a kind of a value, if you will, inside of a very expensive category from a very expensive place in Spain. This is the high-end rent district. So go inside, see. $35 hectares. Didn't give me that year. I was looking for that year they first got started. But beautiful packaging. The label is gorgeous. It's got this cut, like the 17 is actually cut out of the paper, and really looks very classy. Let's taste it together. Let's get Kent's tasting notes. Is the sweet raspberry nose regarding this wine, Kent? The thumbs up on the is that your tasting note here? You could, yeah, I can unmute you there. I got you.
Say again, Ian.
What did you think of this one, Kent?
I thought it was simply delicious. Sweet raspberries, nose and taste, both. Finish in the mouth, match the nose.
Great length, really good balance. It has a lot of quality marks. It's big enough to satisfy the Cabernet fan, and maybe fruit intense enough to satisfy a New World. But I think it also carries a lot of Old World character and charm. And I think that's a right wine, for a lot of special occasions. I think it'd be great with dinner. You could have it with all kinds of, meats and hams and wonderful things. And you can smell that Mediterranean place in there. Think of all the olive aromas that you can find in there. Really delicious. I opened this on Monday. They travel around in these little decanters, and yeah, this wine's not moving at all. It tastes just like it did at opening, maybe just a little bit more open, but it's really I think at that price point, you can find a lot of great wines at that price point. $50 is not inexpensive, but it delivers a pretty sensational value in relation to Ribera de Duero. I have a couple in the $25, $30 category that are really nice, but this one just absolutely stomps on them. This one's, for a little bit more, you're getting a lot more information here.
Ian, question. So in Ribera del Duero, so where's this located, like compared to Vega Sicilia, and a couple of thoughts about the different parts of Ribera del Duero?
Yeah, so Ribera del Duero is 1.5 hours north of Madrid, and it's about 1.5 hours south of Rioja. So it is it kind of spreads itself out from east to west as an appellation. And on the extreme western side, there's a part called Sardón del Duero, which there's some great wines over there. And Ribera kind of stretches out towards the east. And you've got Vega, Sicilia, you got Pingus, and you've got these guys all within a couple of miles. It's a very tight little zone. And on a map, they would all be really relatively close.
Thanks.
You got. I when salespeople come to tell me that their next door neighbor is Vega Sicilia, that is kind of what everybody in Ribera do Duero will say. But I believe that this winery's landline actually does go right up to Vega Sicilia. I'm going to go see for myself.
Such an amazing place. We got a private tour, Rebecca and I, of Vega Sicilia, like 10 years ago or so. It's
All
amazing.
right.
You were talking about earlier about barrel building. They make their own barrels right there. And it's just amazing to see the whole fermentation focus. It's awesome.
It is pretty awesome. All right. Well, I hope you liked my little value find here in Ribera. Let's go to the next wine and taste Pingus, which this is the Florida Pingus. Now, real Pingus, their number one wine, that's approaching $1,000 a bottle. And I could get that wine if you need it. Let me know.
Do you know why it's called Pingus?
Tell me.
Right. So give me a 1 minute for this. So I'm Danish. Peter Sisek, who makes this, is Danish. So in Denmark, there's this series, cartoon series that's called Peter and Ping. And Peter Sisek, who makes this wine, learned how to make wine from his uncle, who's a friend of mine, Peter Winding Diaz, who's on Sicily now. And Peter Winding and his nephew were hanging out, but Peter Winding's wife, Susie, had to figure out how to distinguish their names. So she thought about the Danish cartoon series Peter and Peter and Ping. So she called Peter Sisek Ping, and that resulted in the name Pingus from a cartoon series.
A term of endearment. So that's nice. I like that. So the last time I went to Spain, we had a great group and we were having lunch at a place I'm going to recommend everybody go called Abadia Retuerta, which is in Sardón del Duero, not far from Pingus, but far enough away that at lunch, when we sat down, 11:30, 12, something like that, I didn't have any idea that at 4 o'clock I was going to have to pull everybody out of lunch to get to Pingus. But what happened is at this Abadia Retuerta, which is owned by Novartis, they had spent an unbelievable sum of money rehabilitating this 14th century abbey. And they hired a 3-star Michelin chef from, I believe it was Denmark. And they brought him down, and he had just recently arrived the day we got there. The restaurant wasn't open yet, and he wanted to test his menu ideas on us as a group. We sat there, watched him cook behind a curtain. He opened up the curtain, and the server would come out with him, and they served us, the only customers in the entire restaurant. We ate, I can't even count how many courses. It was 17, 18 courses. 4 hours later, nobody wanted to leave. The bell was ringing. Pingus was waiting. I'm like sweating like bricks because Peter Sussex was supposed to be there. Luckily, he wasn't by the time we got there. But we told him we were running a little bit late. They called him, told him, but my group didn't even want to leave. They were like, "We don't need to go to set. We don't need to go to Pingus. Come on, let's just stay right here." It's like the best day of our lives because it probably was one of the greatest meals of my entire life. Well, I have to say that story. If you've heard that before, I apologize, but that was such a legendary day. This is Flor de Pingus, wine number 5. Again in Ribera, right down the street from what we were just tasting. Peter Sussex, really a great man of wine, is doing some amazing things in Ribera. He gets there, he wants to make world-class wine. He doesn't have enough grapes and old vines. So what he does is he spends his part of his time teaching others how to improve their grape growing techniques, elevating the quality of everyone around him. Because if everyone around him gets better, the reputation of Ribera gets better, and he will do better too. And he helps them. He made a cooperative that everybody can make their wine at. We sell that wine. It's called PSI. And it's a great cooperatively made wine with Peter Sussex, and that's a great value. And then he makes his wine at his property, which I was very fortunate to visit. And he's, internationally renowned, and really is like one of the top figures in Spanish wine. This wine got 96 points by Robert Parker. Let's talk about the description here. I love the 2021 Flor de Pingus, a more ethereal vintage that is very harmonious, co-fermented with some 3% Garnacha. It's an elegant wine in the style of a 2018, 2016, subtle and very balanced, with elegant tannins that give it very good silkiness. It is focused and fresh and has a sense of harmony and very integrated oak. There will be 100,000 bottles to be bottled around June of 23. So he wrote this probably doing a barrel tasting. A mini Pingus at a very different price. The vineyards are meticulously taken care of, everything dry farmed, old vine materials. These look like really happy old vines. We're at $134 a bottle here versus the $1,000 number for the big Pingus. I never had heard that about the Garnacha. I'm going to have to update my tasting note on the website to include that. Let's see what you guys think here. The difference in price, you start to almost see and hear things when you smell wines like this. You can really start to smell like the really incredible stony, rocky, old vine character in the nose. The color is beautiful. It's, there's absolutely nothing that you would change about the color. The nose is gorgeous, gorgeous. And there's such a purity to it, such a prettiness to it for such a big, powerful grape variety, thick skins, tannic, long aging. This is a young wine, but it's been kind of I think his style here is it almost has like a feminine element to it. A kind of pretty delicate, tender. Wow. That is ridiculous. That is so good. I will also say that that price point really hasn't moved very much, even with all the pandemicness and all that stuff. You know, it was 130 bucks a couple of years ago. So this wine, you know, if it kept up with the other wines that move 20, 30%, this should be 175. I'm sure there's a lot of competitive forces to keep this where it's at, but for in the $140 realm, this is one of the best wines on the marketplace in the world. This is ridiculous stuff. It's so pretty. That depth, that power, that fruit, that stoniness, the minerality. It's incredible, incredible wine. Now, wine also, I want to say, you know, one of the great things about doing these tastings with you guys is that I buy these wines at the for the store often based on the press and a piece of paper that comes to me and says, "You have 10 days. If you want some, let us know." So being able to taste these, often it takes, you know, 6 months, 8 months. I see the wine in inventory. I mean, oh, there's the opportunity. I get to use it. So I'm sure the 22 Pingus is what I'd be buying next. I buy it, you know, 1 or 2 cases at a time. If I'm, you know, 5 years later, it's not a big deal. But this is exciting stuff, and I think a few bottles are going to make it into my personal cabinet.
Most enjoyable.
Thank you, Richard. I'm so glad.
Certainly would be fun to taste the Pingus itself.
Yes, sir. It is. I have had the big Pingus, and I just will say that it's like it's much more lavish, concentrated, dense. It's like um it's really special stuff, and it's really weighty. It doesn't want you to touch it until it's older. And this wine kind of is the preview uh, of it. So I think it's you know, in line with this wine, but regular Pingus touches 100 points almost every year. All right. Well, we're going to finish this spectacular gathering tonight with a great, great dessert wine. I promised gold. I think we've delivered so far, and we are going to now, even if you're not a typical sherry fan, this one's so hard not to love. I I think sherry can challenge you, and but this one won't. Got to save. Gotta save my Pingus for after this program. Let's get number 6 in the glass. I have a nice selection of different sherries on the website. Almost all of them are from Lustau, a very important and artisan producer that really represents the best of sherry. There are some other great brands, but I'm able to cover a lot of bases with Lustau. I don't feel like we're needing to you know, if there was a store that just sold sherry, they probably would have a lot of different producers, but there's only a couple that are really still viable in this marketplace. Jerez, down in the southern tip, really a very cool place to visit. It's beautiful, it's different, it's got, different history, different eras of, wars and religion and populations that impacted the architecture, the design, the functionality. It's a very thriving port. This wine used to be probably one of the most important wines in the world. It was sherry that was like the original mixology ingredient in cocktails. People used to order cocktails like a sherry cobbler before distillates really were a thing. And then the sherry industry, like many of the old ancient businesses, got pretty big and started to collapse because of the time element involved, much like port wine, much like aged tawny port. The time requirement was so intensive and the money requirement to do that so intensive. So the industry started to collapse and consolidate, and there were what was once 1,000 sherry producers became 100, and it's now probably less than 50. And many of these sherry producers now auction or go to auctions and buy old barrels of sherry after tasting them and deciding if they want to purchase that barrel and purchase that history. And Lustau is a big part of that. And that's what happens often in these now very collapsed marketplaces. These artifacts, these 50-year-old barrels of wine are now, going to find a new home and be used in very unique ways. Lustau is a blender. They're a producer. They are a purchaser, and they're a marketer. This particular sherry is 100% Palomino. It is known as a manzanilla, an oloroso. A manzanilla is this is a small production oloroso called Pata di Gallina, and oloroso as a category is a little more darker and richer than an Amontillado. And there's a whole vernacular to sherry. There's like 7 different levels, and each one's about how much time, if it was underneath the yeast or not. This is very oxidative and very concentrated, and it's lavish. It is also, as Parker points out, a non-vintage. So they do make vintage dated versions. But by being able to blend a couple barrels together, you can greatly improve your marketability, international reach with a product line. So this is the Oloroso Pata de Gallina. Dark amber, smoke earth almonds. This is Lustau. This is fortified 17% or so. Fortified, it actually says 20 on the back. These wines age forever in wood and blended together and then put in a bottle. You can open this wine and it'll be good for a very long time. It is not something you need to hurry and finish. In fact, they put the little cork cap on there so that you can go back in and out. A little goes a long way, but that nose, I love that salt nose. You're right on the port city. It's such a magical place. Tapas are the way to, unite this with food. This has a little bit of a sweet factor to it. And that sweetness, I think, is all vanillin, no sugar. It's just got that concentration. It's almost like a um salty, high acid, not really high acid, but acid. There's some good acid minerality, saltiness. I could see that having this with like I would totally have this with like a black cod that's got a phenomenal sauce on top. Maybe it's something with ginger or something. Uh, you know, you could go into the Asian categories with a different umami kind of characteristics. Definitely, these wines are made for that fishiness, the mackerel, the sardines, the almonds, the olive oil. This is a wine that you can have with savory dishes. You could take this one into something maybe a little after dinner, but this is not sweet like a dessert wine. There are dessert level sherries, but those are typically made from a grape called Pedro Jimenez. Inside of the Oloroso, this is made much more for an entree. The nose is exotic, and the sherry nose can be a little that oxidative, rancio kind of nose that it has. It can throw you off into some different areas, but the cuisine opportunities here are amazing. And I keep going to like the Japanese like dried seaweed um type of influence, maybe some fatty tuna tuna rolls. That would be an amazing pairing for this opportunity too. Of course, you have to like it. If you don't like it, you're not alone. It is sherry. It is a little different. Talking at 36 bucks. That's a 500 ml, by the way, and a little goes a long way. But it's a great opportunity for food and wine pairing. We have a number of really special Lustaus, smaller producers. The Manzanista line is kind of where I live. These are 200 case productions that are brought into the United States or thereabouts. And so they're not everywhere, but they're better and they really perform well in their category. Let's see what you guys thought of that. There's like a white raspberry. There's a lot of that umami character, that sea salt, salted plums. Prunes, Peter. Yes. Flor yeast, salt, nuts, dried prunes, almonds, olives. Good choices of words there, Thomas. Yeah, it's fun to play with this in a cocktail for sure. Very fun, very fun. there's so many things to learn about Spanish wines and to visit in Spanish wine. There's other areas that we could explore, other grape varieties. I'll continue to include them. Thank you for your support. Take a look at the future tastings. They're coming at us fast. I got a couple of weeks where I'm going to take a little break, be traveling pretty hard. And I'm excited about that, but I'll come back with some good stories.
Hey, Ian, I got a question.
Yeah.
Hey, going a little bit backwards. So, I don't know that much about Spanish wines, but used to be like classification with like Crianza, Reserva, Grand Reserva, based upon like 1, 3, 5 years or barrel or bottle or whatever it was, region to region. Is that becoming less and less important now?
No, I think certainly in Rioja, that's very important. The the problem is that Lopez de Heredia, their current vintage is 2015, and that's their cheapest wine. And the Crianza laws are like, 2, 3 years, reserve of 4 years, grand reserve of 5 years. So the rules don't apply to them. So they kind of raise their nose a little bit to those rules and say, oh yeah, follow us. Because their current vintage on their Tardonia is 2011, and their current white wine is 2013. So,
Wow.
even their rosé is like 2012. So it's just they
My God.
they just do not follow the rules at all. And they do things differently. But I think Rioja is super important in establishing those categories, because the rest of the world can compare their wines to them. I think them and Brunello and Chianti and maybe Barolo, they're the only ones that really have those age categories. I'd love to see other areas maybe develop those. Instead, you got Rioja and Chianti further developing, with Chianti coming out with like Grand Selezione and Rioja creating a luxury tier level now. There's even further development in those categories. And so the other regions are like, well, let's not get started, but maybe they will. And I think that's that in the organization of things, they really have helped protect their brand, and long term that serves you really well. And I think, even in California, Peter, it would be fascinating if we started to have something where it actually meant something, besides the word estate. Maybe the word reserve could mean something, or maybe a new word that we would create that talked about, estate, high ethos, and made with a certain level of integrity, whether that's time in wood or time in bottle, or you know how many years you should wait for the wine. I'm not sure what would make sense. But on the flip side, we've already made wine so damn serious and so complicated, it's hard to get a lot of consumers to follow us into this crazy cobweb of rules and stuff. But I love that. I love seeing what the wine world will react to, and it's a lot of information to keep track of. And for some, they don't care, and that's okay too. If everybody cared about this stuff, all these wines would probably be way more expensive. Um, and but it's made for the few people that have that passionate side for wine, and that's why you guys are here. So thank you very much.
No, I totally agree with you, Ian. So I mean, we would love to have, like a Grand Cru Burgundy in California, even though I know there'll be a heck of a lot of lawyers getting in the middle of that stuff, but so be it. The other thing I was going to ask you about, you focused on a couple of varietals. You mentioned 400 varietals in Spain, which is awesome. I think there's so much cool stuff. Rebecca and I drink a lot of Mencia. You mentioned that before. And I mean, that's one thing I was missing here tonight was Mencia.
Yes, I agree.
I'll also mention last year what I did was I had a great opportunity. I was actually consulting winemaker on Mallorca, and I made some super interesting wines over there. I made a great variety called Marcellan. I don't know if you know about that one. Spain has so much to offer and so many good price points.
So there's a Marcelin producer that I think it just sold out of it, but there's one in Mexico now, but it's a really interesting grape variety. And Mallorca, I have this really great white wine, Peter, on my website. Check it out. It is delicious. It is like Chablis. It's, got island characteristics to it. So check out the Mallorcan white that we have because I love it. I probably will end up drinking more of it than I sell, but it is fantastic. And anyone that's been to Mallorca might recognize the quality of that wine because it's supposed to be one of the top producers from Mallorca. But it's always fascinating to have you here, Peter. Thank you. And to all of you, we had such a wonderful group tonight. Thanks for all the feedback and the comments. And if there's anything we can do to make the Zoom better for you, please let us know. We continue into the future, and I'm working on the 2025 calendar right now, and I'll continue to toggle things around, taking things, quality is important and to us, and we our wine store and our future is about presenting these quality wines and efforts, and we really are happy that you're here. You all have a discount code, so you can purchase any of these things with that code, and hope that you'll enjoy the baseball postseason. I got a new hat for you, Tom. We'll start on Saturday.
Here I was going to suggest that we call these special cuvées in California the Blackburns, and now you ruined everything.
Throw it away.
I'll talk to my lawyer about that one.
Peter, good work. Thank you so much. You guys
Thanks,
have
guys.
Go Dodgers.
Thanks, Ian.
Bye, guys.